Hello and welcome to our coverage of the 2023 Shanghai International Auto Show. In this video, we're going to be giving you a look at all the exciting debuts, not just from international brands like Mercedes-Benz, Porsche, and Volkswagen, but also interesting Chinese companies like BYD and NIO. Let's go. Let's start by talking about this, the BYD Song L concept SUV. While we don't know very much about the car and can't even see the interior, we do know that the exterior styling should be representative of future BYD designs. The Song SUV line is one of the best-selling series for BYD and indeed probably the best-selling SUV series in all of China. What's not a concept car is that, the Destroyer 07 sedan. Okay, so Destroyer is the Chinese name or the direct translation, but I'm told that a better English translation that they would use is the Chaser. Either way, this 5-meter sedan is so far only going to be sold here in China and is going to use a 1.5-liter 4-cylinder kind of hybrid powertrain, probably PHEV. First the Dolphin, then the Seal, and now the Seagull. That's right, BYD's menagerie of ocean animals has increased by 1. This diminutive little city car is going to be joining the BYD lineup as its smallest and most affordable model. I say diminutive because the Seagull measures a scant 3.78 meters in length. That kind of helps to explain the proportions, which to me at least look like a plus-size remote control car. I almost expect an antenna to sprout out of the roof. The interior of the Seagull is just as simple as you would expect from a car that's only going to cost between about $11,500 and $14,500 US. It's also highly similar to that of the BYD Dolphin. That means things like the transmission button that's been integrated into a row of knobs below the 10.1-inch center screen. Material quality is, well, pretty good considering the price point, and there also seems to be a high level of features. Take, for example, the wireless charging pad and the small digital instrument cluster. The Seagull has a wheelbase of just 2.5 meters in length. However, rear passenger space is surprisingly abundant. I have about a fist over my head. I am 1.75 meters tall, or about 5 foot 9 inches, and I feel like I have a decent amount of space, both above the head and when it comes to legroom as well. The Seagull will launch with a single motor option, 55 kilowatts and 135 newton-meters of torque. There were also rumors swirling this car would have a sodium-ion battery available. However, it seems when it launches, it will only have lithium iron phosphate batteries. The first of those batteries will measure 30 kilowatts, and the second is 38.8. They will provide a CLTC range of 305 and 405 kilometers, respectively. Porsche has chosen the Shanghai Auto Show to debut the mid-cycle refresh of the Cayenne. This includes updates to the interior and exterior design, as well as the powertrain and chassis. There have been only minor tweaks to the exterior design meant to bring this car in line with the rest of the lineup from Stuttgart. That includes headlights similar to the ones that you would find on a Porsche Taycan, and a full-width front fascia borrowed from the refreshed Macan. The interior upgrades are perhaps the most obvious. That includes a transition to a fully digital instrument cluster, as well as a new 12.3-inch center screen and 10.9-inch passenger screen, like the one you would find in a Taycan. There's been some tweaks to the tires and suspension, and a lot of changes when it comes to the powertrains. The top turbo GT with its twin-turbo V8 now makes around 490 kilowatts, slightly more than the last version. The base 3-liter V6 also makes slightly more power, and the Cayenne S goes from a 2.9-liter twin-turbo V6 to a 4-liter V8 twin-turbo. Besides me is the all-new 2024 Maserati Grecale Folgore, the first full-electric SUV from the prestigious Italian brand. Maserati says that the styling language from their EVs isn't going to be that different from their ICE vehicles, but there are some noticeable differences, starting with the grille. The area here, as you can see, the areas that would normally be blocked off are open, and the areas that would be open are rather blocked off. This is one thing that will give away the fact that this is an EV. The other thing is coming around on the side. Underneath the Folgore badge is the traditional 3 exhaust ports or portholes on the side of the car. These, when the vehicle is on, will actually light up. Everybody knows that the badge on Maseratis is inspired by Neptune's trident, but the wheels on the Grecale Folgore are inspired by a different mythical character, Thor, and specifically his hammer. When this vehicle is moving, we're told that it is supposed to look like Thor's hammer when he spins it. Think about Marvel movies and you know what I mean. Also has to do with Thor because Folgore in Italian means lightning. While this vehicle isn't going to have a beautiful sounding engine like so many Maseratis before it, they have taken time to install some speakers into the rear bumper that will produce certain sounds, including, we're told, one that's supposed to sound like storm clouds overhead. The interior of the Grecale Folgore is largely similar to that of the ICE version of the car. However, there are some different materials, including the seats here, which are made from, I'm told, an environmentally friendly material. Not all the information has been released regarding the powertrain of this vehicle, but we do know that it will be all electric, of course, have a 105 kilowatt-hour battery that provides up to 700 kilometers of range, and make up to 800 newton-meters of torque. Ladies and gentlemen, meet the Polestar 4, the brand's second SUV and their first coupe SUV. The 4's design blurs the line between a hatchback, a sedan, and an SUV, and indeed actually doesn't even have a rear window. Inside is a digital rear-view mirror in its stead. Like many other Polestar models, the Polestar 3 is full of all sorts of environmentally friendly materials and fabrics. There is a 15.4-inch center screen, a 10.2-inch digital instrument cluster, and a 14.7-inch HUD. Regardless of the market, there will be two different power levels available, a 200 kilowatt single motor variety or a 400 kilowatt dual motor.
The Polestar 4 powertrain, we have three variants. We have a standard range single motor. It's 200 kilowatt and it's 88 kilowatt hour battery. We have a long range single motor. It's a bigger battery, 102 kilowatt hour, and it's still on 200 kilowatt power motor. And we have a long range dual motor. So we're having the 102 kilowatt hour battery and 400 kilowatt power. And this gives really, really good performance on the car. We are down to 3.8 seconds in acceleration time. We're having a performance chassis, which deliver very, very well on curvy roads. You can adjust the chassis settings on the CSD digital, going from a little bit more family ride character to a super stiff track racing feeling on the performance car. And there we also have a 22-inch wheels, we have big brakes, we have the P0 tires. We have it all in what's needed on the performance car. On the dual motor, we have softened the chassis a little bit. It's a very competitive chassis. You can go from fairly big bandwidth, going from a good family drive to also basically a track day setting. And the stability, the balance in the car, the confidence it gives with the 50-50 weight distribution, it's phenomenal. And turning ECS off, then you have a very fun day, wherever you are.
Meet Volvo's new flagship model, the 7-seater EX90 electric SUV. The design of the EX90 keeps a lot of the Volvo signature design elements, including the rear taillights, as well as the headlights, shaped like Mjolnir, that's Thor's hammer. But this time, they're made up of individual LED lights as opposed to being a single piece. The result is a sleek and handsome SUV with up to 370 kilowatts of power and a 0 to 100 kilometer per hour time of less than 4.9 seconds. That powertrain gets its juice from a 107 kilowatt-hour battery pack. It supports 250 kilowatt charging. The WLTP range is a claimed 590 kilometers. This is also the first Volvo model to use LiDAR, in this case from US supplier Lumineer. The interior of the EX90 is classic Volvo, meaning a simple design with excellent material quality. The centerpiece is a 14.5-inch infotainment screen. Making its global debut here in China is the Mercedes-Maybach EQS SUV. Of course, Maybach is the pinnacle of what Mercedes-Benz sells, and of the 21,600 units that they sold in 2022, over half of them were sold here in the Chinese market. When it comes to the luxury MPV market, there is only one king, and that is certainly the Lexus LM, a vehicle that often sells for over $200,000 here in the Chinese market after adjusted dealer markup. This is the all-new generation of LM. This particular car is an LM500, but we're told there will also be an LM350H. All of the models will be hybrid. Will it be able to keep up with all the incoming competitors to the segment? We do not know. All we know is the king is dead. Long live the king. China is Volkswagen's largest market, but they're facing increasing competition from Chinese automakers, particularly in the EV space. To push back, they've released their sixth all-electric model, the ID.7 sedan. The ID.7 shares its design language with the ID Aero and ID Vision concept cars. The light-up grille and VW badge probably won't make it to the European market for regulatory reasons, but it will be on Chinese market vehicles. As fitting of a flagship sedan, this vehicle measures around 5 meters in length and features quite a bit of interior tech, including a large infotainment screen and a small digital instrument cluster. Material qualities appear to be quite good, including real leather seats and center console. Smart continues its embrace of the EV future with the release of the number 3. Like the number 1, this vehicle's interior and exterior was designed by Mercedes-Benz, while the development and production were taken over by Geely, a Chinese company here in China. Like the number 1, the number 3 is on the SEA architecture, but it is slightly larger, measuring 4.44 meters in length. It also has a much more steeply raked roofline for a much more sporty look. Unsurprisingly, the interior is largely similar to that of the Smart number 1, including the 12.8-inch center screen with a Qualcomm chipset. Powertrain options include a single motor version with 200 kilowatts or a dual motor with 315 kilowatts. Batteries should include a 66 kilowatt hour, but may also include a battery as large as 82 kilowatt hours for a range of around 440 kilometers on the WLTP cycle. NIO continues the rollout of its latest generation of SUVs with the ES6, which should be one of its highest volume models. Specific information about the ES6 is very limited at this point, but we do know that it's going to have the same platform, NT 2.0, and the same computing platform, the Atom supercomputing platform. We also expect it to have the same sensor pack as the larger ES7. That includes the watchtower with its LiDAR unit mounted there in the middle. The design of the car is also, as you can see, largely similar to that of the larger ES7 SUV. The interior, well, we can only look at it from the outside, but as you can see, it's largely similar to the ES7 once again. That means a instrument cluster here and then a relatively small center screen, but NIO is known for their very simplistic, minimalist interiors, and I personally find them very attractive. As I mentioned, specific information is very limited at this point, but we can make some educated guesses, starting with the fact that this will have battery swapping like other NIOs. That means a 75 kilowatt hour battery and a 100 kilowatt hour battery and probably a 150 kilowatt hour solid state battery for rental later this year. Powertrain wise, well, there'll be certainly a dual motor version with hopefully up to 480 kilowatts, just like the larger ES7. The price, well, all I know is that it's not going to exceed 380,000 RMB, which is about 55,000 US dollars. That is the G6, a stylish electric coupe SUV from XPeng. The EV startup was one of the first Chinese EV brands to enter the European market, and this thing is likely to be sold in that market alongside XPeng models like the P7 and the G9. The front end features the signature LED strip from XPeng, the so-called lightsaber, but the side, well, it's got a unique and very bow-like shape that's unlike any XPeng SUV before it, including the G3i and the G9. To me, it brings to mind the Mercedes-Benz EQ series. Very handsome. We've got no official numbers, including powertrain or battery size or price, but we've been hearing things like 358 kilowatts from a dual-motor electric powertrain. Not bad. Pricing should be between about 30 and 45,000 US dollars, which would put it underneath of their top G9 SUV. 2023 will see yet another Chinese automaker making a run at the European market. This time, it's Geely's sub-brand Zeekr and their Zeekr X. The Zeekr X is built in the same SEA architecture as other Zeekr models like the 001 and the 009 MPV, as well as models from both Volvo and Smart. It also has the same powertrains as the Smarts, like the Smart number 1 and number 3. That means 200 or 315 kilowatts from a dual motor powertrain. 0 to 100 kilometers per hour as fast as 3.7 seconds. Zeekr describes the X as a SUV, but the proportions and the size, 4.45 meters in length, are much more similar to a hatchback, if you ask me. That's okay, though. I figure European customers would be more interested in a hatchback than they would a tiny SUV. Regardless of whether you get the single-motor rear-mounted powertrain or the dual-motor powertrain, they all come with a 66 kilowatt-hour battery, making a maximum range of 560 kilometers on the CLTC cycle. The Zeekr X has some very nice material qualities inside, including real leather seats, but the real show happens with this, the center screen. There is only one center screen. Right now it's in front of the passenger, but if I take 4 fingers and do this, it slides down here to the middle. When the Zeekr X hits the market, we'll have two different versions, a 5-seater and a 4-seater, like the one you see here. By the way, the center console also moves back and forth. The best part of the Zeekr X, however, is the price. $27,600 to $32,800 US for a top spec model here in the Chinese market. Denza, a brand originally started by BYD and Mercedes-Benz, has chosen the Shanghai Auto Show to debut their latest model, the N7 Coupe SUV. The previous generation of Denza SUV, the Denza X, was styled inside and out by Mercedes-Benz, but that's not the case with the N7. Mercedes-Benz has taken a step back from this joint venture and now only owns a 10% stake rather than a 50%. That means there's no more styled by Mercedes-Benz badges on this car, but I have to say, this is easily the best looking Denza model yet. The N7 will be the first model from any BYD brand to feature the new DCIS-A air suspension system. That is going to be standard on the N7. That system will also work together with the camera that's mounted on the front of the windshield to scan the road ahead and therefore prepare the suspension in advance rather than reacting to whatever obstacles it runs into. The model we were just looking at doesn't have LiDAR, but the N7 will have it available as an option. We were very impressed with the improvement in material quality between the last generation of Denza and this new generation of Denza, and we got that impression by driving the Denza D9. That applies to the N7 as well. This center console is trimmed in real leather, very, very soft to the touch. This is a wireless charging pad here with some kind of micro suede, a very nice soft micro suede. There are plastics here in the center console. We have a bunch of touch-sensitive buttons. Not my favorite, but we won't go into that. Large 15+ inch center console screen here. Snappy responses, looks very good. We enjoyed that in the D9 as well. Full digital instrument cluster, and over here, a passenger screen. Multimedia, GPS, it's got it all. Storage options, this being an EV, there's a large center console area down here, as well as, let's see, a very deep center console storage area. We don't know everything about the powertrain of the N7, but we know some details, including the powertrain options. There's going to be two versions, a big surprise. A rear motor version, 230 kilowatts, and a rear and front-mounted version that'll make a total of 390 kilowatts. Same powertrains from the BYD Seal. Battery-wise, we've heard that there is going to be something around like a 91 or 92 kilowatt-hour battery with up to 700+ miles of CLTC range. Now we turn to what is undoubtedly one of the most fascinating EV brands here in China, and that is Hi-Fi. Their X and Z models sell for in excess of $100,000 US here in the Chinese market. But this is their volume seller, the new Hi-Fi Y. The styling of the Hi-Fi Y might be outrageous compared to traditional SUVs, but it's a step towards sanity compared to the X and the Z. That doesn't mean it doesn't retain some of the interesting styling elements, however. That includes LED panels, both front and rear, and more importantly, those outrageous two-piece rear doors that you found on the X. Specific prices haven't been announced, but we do know that it will be somewhere between $58,000 and $72,000 US, which will put it in direct competition with models like the Neo EC6 and the Cadillac Lyriq. We are here at the stand for Yangwang, BYD's new high-end brand, and we are first going to start with this, the Yangwang U9 electric sports car. Now, there isn't too much known about this car. We know it will probably have a quad-motor powertrain, just like the U8. We'll get to that in a moment, by the way. We also know that it's going to use DCIS-X. That is again, not very detailed as far as information goes, but we know it's going to be BYD's most advanced, sportiest, most highest performance suspension system that will probably be hydraulic. Some of you may have seen online where this thing came onto stage at a recent press conference and literally danced and then jumped up off the ground. I mean, all four tires clearing the ground. This is only my second time seeing this car in person and my first time getting up close like this, and I have to say, it does not disappoint. I don't know what it looks like from the photos or in this video, but in person, it's a truly impressive looking sports car design. The details like the headlights are beautiful. Overall, it looks like quite a performer. It took some doing, but we are going to be giving you a look at one of the most hotly anticipated Chinese cars of 2023, the Yangwang U8, which will start at $160,000 US. That's right, the launch edition of this vehicle, which will be coming later this year, is going to start at 160,000 USD. But there's good reason for that, because there's a lot of tech underneath this car. Let's talk about the exterior design first, though. It has an incredibly unique look with this wraparound, almost C-shaped LED cluster, daytime running light, and headlights that are integrated here. It screams expensive and high tech, if you ask me, especially the highly detailed grille here, which really flashes under the lights. And it's not just the front end design that looks imposing, the whole car is imposing because it's quite large, 5.3 meters in length. The whole dimensions are around the same size as a Defender 130. Now let's talk a little bit about that technology, because again, there's a lot of it. Starting with LiDAR units, you've got three. One mounted above the windshield in the middle, flanked by clusters of cameras. And then on each side, you have another LiDAR unit, which brings me, conveniently, to this little logo, which indicates the fact that this is a quad motor powertrain. Pure EV, of course, 4 motors, one on each corner for a total of 820 kilowatts, or around 1,100 horsepower. The claimed 0 to 100 kilometers per hour time, 3 seconds flat. This thing uses DSys-P, which is BYD's advanced hydraulic suspension system. It also has, of course, individual all-wheel drive, giving it some real capabilities off-road. It also has, of course, adjustable height, thanks to those hydraulic suspension, and the height can be adjusted based on what those cameras and LiDAR are reading on the road ahead. So if it's in certain modes and it detects an obstacle, say a large rock in the way, it will raise the suspension up to get out of the way. Now, unfortunately, we cannot open the door to show you the interior, but we can see it through the window. Now, this is the first time that this has been publicly viewed, and it is a very impressive and luxurious looking setup. Everything is covered in leather, as you can see. Lots of screens, including a very interesting center screen that actually has an empty space behind it, where the other two screens kind of pass through. Overall, looks like a pretty comfortable place to sit. Some of you may have seen online that this car, much like the new EQG from Mercedes, can do a tank turn because it has a rear steer. Some of you may also remember when this car debuted, it came on stage literally sideways. That is not a production thing. That requires a special set of tires, which is on the car next to me over here. These are the wheels that I mentioned before. These are what allowed the Yang Wangyue to literally drive sideways onto the stage at its press conference earlier this year. As you can see, each individual section rolls, which is why I can go like this. That's going to do it for our coverage of the 2023 Shanghai International Auto Show. Our big takeaway from today's show, that would be EVs, EVs, and more EVs. Not just from Chinese manufacturers, from an increasing number of international manufacturers, including Porsche. Thank you very much for watching.